Runner's build. The longest documented persistence hunt in the Kalahari Desert lasted 5 hours and 40 minutes. One man, one animal, 40 degrees, no shade, the animal died. The man walked home. If people have told you your whole life to eat more, bulk up, put some meat on those bones, they were looking at a persistence hunting machine and seeing a problem. Men with lean frames, narrow shoulders, long limbs, women with balanced proportions and minimal curves. Here is the physics nobody explains. Long limbs create more skin surface relative to total body mass. Picture a radiator. A wide, flat one releases heat faster than a small, compact one. More skin relative to your mass means heat escapes faster when you move. You cool down during sustained effort at a rate that heavier builds cannot physically match. That is Allen's rule, a documented biological principle showing that populations in hot climates develop longer limbs and leaner frames specifically for this reason. Persistence hunting worked like this. Hunters tracked prey across open grassland during the hottest part of the day. Not until they caught up, but until the animal's body temperature climbed past what it could handle, and it collapsed. Harvard evolutionary biologist Daniel Lieberman spent years documenting exactly why the human body is built for this. Heavier builds overheated and dropped out. Lean frames stayed in the race. When everyone else stopped, you were still moving. That is not a minor edge. That is the difference between eating and starving. For men told to add mass their whole lives, your frame was built for distance, not size. Different goal, different solution. For women, the same cooling advantage comes with one more benefit. Balanced weight distribution reduces joint stress over a lifetime. Research on nomadic populations shows higher female survival rates during long migrations among women, with more even overall fat distribution. This build does not win a single dramatic moment. It wins the long game. That build outlasted everything in heat. The next one was built for raw force at a single critical moment, and the genetics behind it will surprise you. Broad build. Shoulder width divided by waist circumference. That single ratio predicts perceived physical threat more accurately than height, weight, or total muscle mass. Across every culture researchers have tested. Here is what that meant in practice. When two groups met in the ancient world, nobody ran calculations. They looked, they assessed. If one side had broader shoulders and narrower waists, the other side often walked away without a fight. Your body shape ended conflicts before they started. Men with wide shoulders tapering to a narrow waist, women with broader shoulders relative to their hips. If people have always treated you as physically capable before you proved it, that is not in your head. That is your silhouette doing something your ancestors relied on to survive. The same structural advantage in both. More muscle attachment points above the torso, more raw force through the arms. Throwing a spear accurately. Taking down dangerous prey, winning a physical confrontation in 30 seconds. Maximum force right now, when it counted most. The genetics are specific. A gene variant called ACTN3 produces alpha-actinin 3, a protein powering fast-twitch muscle fibers. The fibers built for explosive short-burst force. West African populations carry this protein at near universal rates. Almost nobody there carries the version that switches it off. Thousands of years of selection pressure left a permanent mark in the genome. Two people running the same program with different skeletal widths do not get identical results. Wider attachment points mean more total force from the same training. The frame is infrastructure. You either have it or you build around not having it. For women, broader shoulders carry documented advantages beyond strength. Higher grip strength, better load-carrying endurance over distance. Research on populations doing sustained physical labor shows broader-framed women accumulate fewer injuries, doing the same work as narrower-framed peers. The broad build stopped threats through presence. The next build survived something completely different, a threat that presence alone could not fix. Compact build. You have probably been underestimated your whole life because of your height. Science has a very specific explanation for why that is a mistake. Shorter limbs with the same muscle mass produce more force at the point of contact. A shorter lever concentrates force more efficiently. Basic mechanics, not training philosophy. This is why powerlifting world records are held almost entirely by compact athletes, not because tall people train less, Because the frame mechanics are genuinely superior for maximum force output. Men with short, powerful frames, women with dense, sturdy builds. There is a biological principle behind this called Bergmann's rule. Populations in colder climates trend toward larger body mass in a smaller, denser frame. Less surface area relative to total volume means less heat escapes. Cold kills lean builds faster because lean builds have too much skin for the heat they generate. Cold did not ask these populations what shape they preferred. It removed lean builds from the gene pool over generations. The compact build held heat, survived brutal winters, and passed the trait forward. Their descendants are alive today. If you have always been stronger than people expect when they look at you, that is this. Your frame concentrates force in a way that longer builds structurally cannot replicate. In environments where moving massive loads or surviving extreme cold determined whether you lived, compact was not small. Compact was the most powerful shape in the room. For women, the compact frame shows up in skeletal research too. Higher bone density relative to height. Analysis of remains from cold climate populations shows consistently lower fracture rates in compact-framed females across all age groups. The load of pregnancy, carrying children, decades of hard labor in brutal conditions. Compact bones handled it better. Every time. Your body holds heat like it was designed to never let it go. Because at some point, it wasn't. The compact build made cold survivable. The next shape carried a different kind of weight, and medicine has spent decades telling only half the story. Central build. The fat your doctor flags as most dangerous is also the fastest mobilizing fuel your body ever built. Both things are true. Medicine tells you one and skips the other. Men carrying weight around the abdomen. Women whose fat shifts toward the center after their 30s. If you have been told your whole life that this shape is a warning sign, you are only getting half the information. Fat stored around your organs sits directly next to your liver, your heart, your major muscle groups. It breaks down and enters your bloodstream faster than fat stored anywhere else. When your body needed fuel in seconds, a sudden fight, a sprint, a threat with zero warning, this tank fired first before any other depot even started moving. In a world of sudden physical threats, having that tank ready meant you reacted faster, hit harder, and recovered quicker than builds relying on slower fat depots. That is not a flaw. That is a rapid response system positioned exactly where it needed to be. Then cortisol broke it. Cortisol evolved to empty that tank during physical emergencies. The problem is cortisol cannot tell the difference between a predator and a deadline. Psychological stress activates the same response. Your body keeps filling the tank, preparing for a fight that never arrives. The fuel builds up because the action that was supposed to burn it stopped happening thousands of years ago. The design is not broken. The world around it changed. That build fired first in a crisis. The next shape sent a signal so embedded in human biology that it shows up in people who have never been exposed to modern beauty standards. V-taper. There is a number that kept appearing in attractiveness research so consistently across different cultures that scientists initially assumed the data was contaminated. The number is 0.7. Men with broad shoulders and a narrow waist, women with a defined waist relative to wider hips and chest. Both shapes registered as preferred across populations with no shared media, no shared history, no overlapping influences. For men, the V-taper does two things simultaneously. It signals physical capability to competing males, which determined your rank, your resources, your position in the group, and it signals biological quality to potential mates. In a world where your rank determined whether you ate and who protected you, that shape was worth more than almost any other physical trait. If people have always responded to your presence before you said anything, now you know why. For women, a waist-to-hip ratio near 0.7 appears repeatedly as a broadly preferred shape across cross-cultural research. The preference shifts in some environments. Hunter-gatherer groups sometimes prefer higher ratios because visible fat signals food access in resource-scarce settings. But the core pattern is too consistent to explain through learned behavior alone. A defined waist relative to wider hips signals high estrogen relative to testosterone, regular ovulation, strong reproductive health, In a world where more than half of children never reached adulthood, this shape communicated something that could not be faked. Your biology was working exactly as it should. If this is your shape, your body has been broadcasting that signal your entire life without you knowing it. Signals that lie get filtered out over generations. This one kept telling the truth for 200,000 years. This shape broadcast quality without saying a word. The final shape stored something far more specific, and your body has been protecting it since before you were born. Base-heavy build. Oxford researchers found a fat depot that does not behave like any other fat in the human body. Exercise barely moves it. Months of caloric restriction bounces off it. The hormonal signals that pull fat from your arms, your back, your face, they arrive at lower body fat and largely stop working. If you have spent years trying to change this part of your body and failed, you are fighting a biological lock, not a lack of discipline. Men with wider hips and more lower body mass, women with pronounced storage in the hips and thighs. Your body is not malfunctioning. It is protecting something it calculated as more valuable than your daily energy needs. That something is the survival of the next generation. The third trimester of pregnancy demands roughly 300 extra calories per day. Breastfeeding demands up to 500 additional daily calories for months after birth. Lower body fat mobilizes preferentially during exactly these windows and almost no other time. Your body spent years building that reserve and guards it until a new life makes the withdrawal. The fatty acids stored there, particularly DHA, are directly used in building the fetal brain during pregnancy. Research consistently links maternal DHA levels to better early brain development in infants. Your body was already investing in the next generation's brain before that generation existed. For men carrying more lower body weight, research points toward a correlation with higher paternal investment, more time directed toward existing children rather than finding new mates. In small ancestral groups where a child's survival depended heavily on whether the father stayed, this was a strategy that worked. The fat your body refuses to give up is not evidence of a slow metabolism. It is evidence of a body that already decided what its priorities are. And those priorities were never about how you look in a mirror, what your shape actually is. Every shape in this video was, at some point, the shape most likely to survive. You did not choose your shape. Your shape is what remained after thousands of generations of environments kept asking hard questions, and your ancestors kept answering them correctly. That is not a category. That is evidence.